Central Georgia, because we have a very, very exciting and phenomenal young man who's going to speak to us this morning in the person of Mr. Lewis Williams, who is a branding expert, and he can tell you a little bit more about him biographically. But I'm so excited about bringing the importance of branding and marketing and promotions to all of us, because sometimes we miss that. I know of several different businesses that have started that were good businesses, but because of the lack of ability and knowledge about branding, they were not successful. So this young man is from Macon. He's Sylvia McGee's brother. I taught him. I started teaching when I was 12. So So at this time, I'm going to bring to you Lewis Williams, and he will give you his present title. He has grown so much, and he will give you his present job, and he will give you his thoughts on branding and marketing and promotion. Lewis?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hamisham. How you doing? I never
I'm
will forgive you.
outstanding.
Never will forgive you for giving me a C in your class, but that's okay. Hey, Macon, Georgia. It's really nice to talk at home. I'm Lewis Williams, as Mr. Hamisham said, and also the little brother of Sylvia Williams McGee. I grew up in Pleasant Hill and I always was interested in art. Little did I know that art would take me to the world of advertising. So where I am an executive vice creative director at a place called Weber Shandwick. And so I've been doing this for like over 3 decades now. And I work with some of the biggest brands in the world. So when Mr. Hamisham talks about branding, I'm telling you, it's very important. And especially in the world we live in today. And I'm assuming that most of you all entrepreneurs, you all got that look in your eyes I can see as I look at your photographs. So it's very important that we do that. And again, especially in this digital world that we live in now. So we don't have a lot of time. I did prepare a deck. So I'd like to share my screen and take you through some thoughts. Okay, so let me look down here and it says share screen somewhere. I see that. Okay, please do not judge my laptop because I have a lot of, okay, great. Are we all seeing that? Not?
Yes, sir. We can see it. Yes, we can see
it.
Yeah,
we got
it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about branding, right? So we got to put some respect on my name. When you really look at branding, that's what you got to think about. Put some respect on my name, whether it's your business or whether or not it's your service. The person on the right is Dapper Dan. I don't know how many of you all are familiar with him. You can react with a hand raise or something like that so I know. But I'm going to talk about him a little bit in the presentation. As I said before, I worked on some of the biggest brands in the world, and you can look McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Disney, and these are all great brands, right? You look at these brands and you feel and think something about them. You have interacted. I'm quite sure everybody on this call have interacted with one of these brands in one way or another. But before we talk about branding and all of that, we have to talk about what exactly is a brand. So as you can see here, brand is the personality of your business. It's the first thing you think of and how you feel when you see a logo or hear its name. And that's very important, the personality of a brand. Because when you feel good about a brand, and we know it, just think about it for a t-shirt, right? You wear a Nike t-shirt, a Chanel t-shirt. Hey, it says something about you. You feel good about that brand to wear it on a t-shirt. But if you do not, then that's not good. So you got to look at brand as really people. Personality is important, and emotions are connected to how you feel about a brand. So as you build your own personal brands, you have to step back and say, how does this make an individual feel? And I love this quote from Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So when you have a negative interaction with a brand, it can piss you off for life. But when you have a positive relationship with a brand, you can say, okay, well, they messed up my order this time, but that's okay. Everybody has a bad day. So it's really important to think about there's emotions that's associated with your brand and who you are or your service. Now, there's a difference between brands. We talked about brand as a personality, what people feel when they see you, see your name, see your logo. Now, that's very different from branding. Branding is when, the logos, the graphics, the services, right? So that is the difference when it comes to advertising, you see, because so often we get branding confused with brands, because you may be talking to someone and you're talking to one of your designers. You may say, make the logo bigger, make my name bigger, and it's like, no, you can make your logo as big as you want. But if people don't feel any kind of way about you, it doesn't matter. So let's not confuse branding with brand, which then takes you to marketing, right? So marketing is when we talk about the advertising, the social media, the trade booths, all the things that you want to do to want somebody to actually buy your product or service. Now that's marketing. So you got brand as the personality. Branding is all your graphics, your logo, all that kind of stuff. And marketing is what you do to try to connect to the consumer to actually buy something. Now, there's 4 steps of branding. Understand your brand perception. Like, you got to understand who you are as a brand. Then you have to create a vision for your brand. So often we fail with branding because we don't know who we are as a brand or what our service is. And so you cannot then create a vision. And then you have to have a brand that has some values, right? You have to say, do I feel this way about global climate? Do I feel this way about saving the whales? Do I feel this way about school and education? You got to take a position, and then you have to stick to it. And we talked about build your personality, because again, brands is like, how do I feel about you as a person? Brands are people. If you walk away with anything today, you got to understand brands are people. It's not your business that you own. It's not your hair salon. It's a person that you have created. So this is like a just quick little, one-sheeter on branding, and marketing. And I can send this deck to Mr. Hamersham, and he can share it with you guys so you can keep this. But again, he said branding is the business promise, branding is the logos, and marketing is the advertising of that. Now, what's the best brand in the world? Apple. Apple, globally, Apple people love Apple. I don't know how many Apple people versus PC people, but I'm an Apple person. Because what do? They have this really great ecosystem, and as a brand, people love them. But this year, they were knocked off their pedestal. Amazon is the most loved brand in the world. And you got to think about Amazon. For the young folks on this call, you may not know this, but Amazon started with just selling books. That's all they did. Now, Amazon sells everything. Now I think they're getting ready to get into healthcare. Amazon is everything from A to Z. So think about that. Now I want to talk about brand as a person. This man, his name is Dapper Dan, the man and the brand. Do anyone know who he is? Anyone has heard of Dapper Dan? I can't see you all. I don't know anyway. Teresa, anybody raising their hands? Anybody nodding? Anybody saying anything?
Yes, they're nodding.
Okay. I love this man. I've done some research on him. I had a chance to talk to him. And it's very interesting about, when does a personality become a brand? When you think about Michael Jordan was a basketball player. But God, look at the shoes he sells. He has a whole brand called Jordan, right? So when does a personality actually become a brand themselves, and how do they separate, and how did that happen? And it took him years and years to do that. And he started with just being this clothing designer out of Harlem, selling close to hip hop folks. But what his vision was that he would use oversized logos, oversized logos in fashion. And nobody was doing that in the fashion world at all. But he had a vision for his brand and a vision for who he was. He believes in Harlem. He loves Harlem. He will live in nowhere else but Harlem. Harlem is him. But yet, he changed the whole fashion world. He went from streetwear drug dealers, dressing drug dealers in Harlem, to influencing street culture today. The man is 78 years old, but look who's wearing his stuff. And his brand has now been picked up by Gucci, Louis Vuitton. He's such a brand. Look what Gap did with Gap. I mean, who's the brand here? The power of a brand. We all know the Gap, but we know Gap. Look what he was able to do at his age. But this is over a 40-year period of him working on his brand, starting in Harlem. When I see this shirt, I had to have one sold out in an hour. Gap. Great. Gap. So who's lifting who up here? Gap or Gap, right? And now I want to talk about when you all create your brand, you got to protect your brand because you're in competition. You do something well, somebody else going to come try to take your candy. Or either there's going to be sort of, people going to try to rip off your thing. Okay, so you got to protect your brand. So that's why you have to really be strong and have a really strong vision about it. This is what happened to Dap. Dapper Dan created on the left, he did that back in the 80s for Louis Vuitton. They came and shut him down because they call it a counterfeit. 15 years later, look to the right. That appeared from Louis Vuitton designers at a fashion show in Paris. They ripped him off from Gucci. I mean, Gucci ripped him off. So that didn't go well. Whatever, big lawsuit. Dapper Dan is fine. He got his money. But that tells you, when you create a great brand, especially when it's good, that's one way that you know you're successful when people try to steal from you. But you really have to make sure you have a vision and you have to make sure you keep your brand healthy. If not, someone will take it from you. And hey, I know I got some young folks on the call here. This is another Dapper Dan story, but this is from Tafar. We all know him. I don't know how many ladies got some of his bags, but raise your hand if you do. You know what I mean? This young man came in. His thing is about bags for everybody. He's a queer kid, right? So he's bringing in that personality into the fold. So now Mr. Hammersham said something about it's important about brand impact. You don't do all this for nothing. It's important that you have some impact with your brand. Now, this is something that I want you all to think about too. What you do or what you make may not be who you are. What I mean by that, you may open up a hair salon. Are you a hair salon? Are you a community where Black women come and share stories and feel beautiful about themselves? Is it a place where women come to share? Is that what that really is? Or you just do hair? So if you think you just do hair, then you don't get it. People go to see their friends. People go to talk to their hair designer. People go to see other Black women. So that's why the barbershops and the hair salons are so important in the community, because they are more than just that. So whatever service or product you come up with, please understand what you make or what you may have as a service is not really what it is. You got to talk about what does this contribute to a person's life? How does it make them feel? That's what it is. And it's another thing in the world we live in today. This is a friend of mine, and she heads up the McDonald's brand. And you can see they talk about the world experience. People want experiences now. That's why Airbnb took off. It's like, don't stay in a hotel, stay in a house that you can stay in the neighborhood. You know, now you see, hey, here's the houses with the best pools or tree houses. Okay, I'll go to Miami. I'm going to stay in a tree house. So it's an experience. It's not a hotel room. So think about what you're doing now as you're building your brands, that you want to say, what is the experience that I'm giving somebody? Not just a transaction, but a memorable experience that I'm giving somebody as a brand. So think about that. And here's another thing. There is no off switch. Internet, everything we do is 24/7, 365, and then some. Your brand is always on. You know, stores don't close now. The brick and mortar store may close, but the website doesn't. So always understand that your brand is always on. So there is no break whatsoever. And here's it. Look for advice. This is a hard game. Like I said, people would take your candy. You got really strong competition. People confused. You got misinformation. You yourself may have to get out of your own way. It is not about making the logo bigger or telling somebody 10 times. It's about you stepping back and understand, who is your brand? Who are you? What are you bringing in this world? Why do we need you? Why does the world need you? What are you bringing to make a difference as a brand? Don't let your ego get in the way. So you got to leave this to the pros. So seek advice. Seek advice. Thank you very much. If I can find my cursor, and I can take any questions or anything like that.
Well, before somebody asks a question, I want to thank you. I mean, this information is phenomenal, and we have recorded it. And you know, everybody, particularly aspiring and existing entrepreneurs, really need to understand that. And people are confused about branding. And I've been in business a long time, but I have never had that perspective given to me. Mm-hmm. So I'm really appreciate you. And when you're in town, maybe you can come and one of our mixers and come and talk to the persons or come and talk to the group person.